Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I would just like to say that I'm really excited because Newfoundland is finally getting some summer. It's always hit or miss, and through June we can get snow. Sometimes it's still really chilly until into July, but the end of June has been so nice, and I really hope that this is an indicator of what kind of summer it's going to be because I would like to be able to spend more time outside and in the sunshine. So here's hoping that summer will continue on this tiny little island. But the actual reason that we are here is for today's video, which is another, if you like that, then maybe you should try this type of video. And it's kind of combining a few different ideas that I have been thinking about making videos about. So first of all, this is a book channel, so I want to focus on books, but I also really love anime. And so I was thinking about doing a video about my favorite anime, or thinking about how I could integrate anime into at least one video. This is not going to take over the whole channel, but at least for one fun video. And so I decided to do this one, which is if you like this anime, then maybe you'll like this book. But the opposite holds true as well. So if you've read a lot of fantasy and you'd like to start somewhere with an anime, then if you like one of these books, then maybe you could give one of these anime a shot as well. Another thing that I think about a lot when I'm reading, as I'm sure many of us do, is whether the books that we're reading would be good adaptations. So the books that I have selected today, I'm pairing them with an anime because I think that they go well together, and if you like one, you'll likely like the other. But I think that these are 5 books that would also make excellent animated or anime adaptations. So I have a list separate from this of books that I felt would make good anime, and I drew some of the names from this to make up this video. So after that kind of complicated intro, we will get into the actual comparisons. So for the first suggestion or the first recommendation for this video, I'm going to say if you like the wildly popular anime Attack on Titan, then maybe you will enjoy Rebecca Kwong's Poppy War series. So just to give a little rundown of both these things, Attack on Titan, like I said, is a massively popular anime that is just airing its final season. So there's been a break. There's 2 halves of the final 4th season. The first half has been released. We're awaiting the second half, but the manga has finished. So for people who read the manga, you already know what happens. I don't read that, so please don't leave any spoilers for what happens. But this is an anime that follows a group of friends who live inside a walled compound because they are terrorized by a species known as Titans who live on the outside. And these are kind of superhuman, gigantic cannibals, essentially, who will eat humans and have kind of driven them into this pseudo-endangerment, pseudo-extinction, and they're all living within the walls of this compound. So we follow a main character named Aaron, who would really love to go outside the compound and wants to discover more about the world, but his life is significantly altered by the arrival of more of these Titans. So we follow him over the course of the anime and some of his friends, some of his companions, as they train to try to combat these Titans and get to know more about the world and more about what exactly it is that they're up against. But thematically, a lot of the important themes in this anime include the toll that war takes, what happens when you let out that aggression, when you fight back, what is the nature of humanity? A lot of these hard-hitting questions I have described to people in my life who don't really like to watch a whole lot of anime. I've described Attack on Titan as an anime for people who don't really like anime. So a lot of the common humorous conventions that you'll find in anime, a lot of the kind of over-exaggeration, things that I do really enjoy, but I can see how other people don't. Attack on Titan doesn't have a lot of that. It is an excellent drama in its own right. I think the story writing is excellent, and I think all around it is one of my favorite television shows of all time. I think that it is phenomenal, and I think that it pairs really well with Rebecca Kwong's Poppy War. In Poppy War, we follow a young woman named Rin as she is studying to write an entrance exam to get into one of the most prestigious military academies in the country. She is a poor woman who lives in an area of the country that is very destitute. She doesn't have a lot of resources. She's a war orphan and is being raised by some distant family members. And she's not treated very well. She has had a very tumultuous upbringing, and she feels that her only way to get out of this life that has been kind of thrust in front of her is to ace this exam and get into this military academy. So the first half of the first book is her journey trying to get into this academy and what follows afterward. But the tone very quickly shifts in the second half of the first novel, and it from there becomes a very dark, very bleak treatise on war, the repercussions of war, and it has some of the most harrowing depictions of war that I have ever read. And what makes them even more difficult to read is that Rebecca Kuang took all of this from real world events. Like, these are all things that have actually happened. The atrocities that you read about are real. They are things that were done to real people. And at least for me, that made it really difficult to read. But I was really glad that I had read it. I think that the character of Rin is very interesting. She is a very complex anti-heroine, and I think that she pairs well with the main character, Eren, in Attack on Titan. They have very different ideologies. They are motivated by very different things, but they are both very extreme personalities. They will do anything that they have to do to accomplish their goals. And I think that the tone of both the anime and the books melds very well together. So that is my first recommendation. The second recommendation that I have is if you like the anime, Gurren Lagann, which is a 2007 anime. It's a bit of an older one, but one that I really, really love, that I think you should check out the series Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So I think these are an anime and a book series that go very well together. I think that they complement each other well. I think that Red Rising would make an excellent anime, and I think that it would be best done in the same style as Gurren Lagann. So Gurren Lagann, I have chatted to Patrick about this. It is one of the most over-the-top animes that I have ever seen. If you think of the biggest power escalations that you know of in anime, bring it up even higher, and that's what you get in Gurren Lagann. But we follow, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic setup, and it has to do, at the beginning of the story, there are people who are miners or drillers, and they drill through the earth. And I don't want to, I feel like it's a very quirky and fun anime that you have to really watch to experience. So I'm not going to give you a whole lot about the plot. But in terms of elements that I think make it really special, it does have that very over-the-top kind of escalation of power. So if you're not into that, then that probably wouldn't work well for you. But it has phenomenal characters and a found family element that is really strong. And that's what I think ties it really closely to the Red Rising series. There are friendships, brotherhoods, there are people who come from different walks of life, who have different experiences, who come together to rise up and fight against an enemy that they feel is unjust. So Gurren Lagann is an anime that has so much heart. It is really emotional for all of its ridiculous pomp and flair. It also has a really heartfelt cast of characters. It has a very emotional storyline. There are some twists that I found to be very shocking and hit me really hard. So it is an anime that I would definitely recommend. It is from, I think, the late I think like 2007, 2008-ish maybe. I remember I watched it during university. So I think that is when it came out. But anyway, it was fantastic, and I think that it pairs really well with Pierce Brown's Red Rising series. So this is another kind of dystopian setup. We have our main character of Darrow, who lives on Mars, and he lives in a society where people are categorized by color. And he is one of the Reds, which is kind of the lowest color in this caste system. And he is also a miner, so you get that kind of drilling element in both the anime and the book series. So he is a miner. He is mining for, and I didn't know what this was in a previous video, and then I looked it up, and now I don't remember again. I think it was helium-3 or something. Some sort of helium he mines for. And he believes, or all of the people around him believe, that if they can mine well enough, if they can achieve their goals, then they might have some hope of humanity once again getting above the surface. But when unfortunate circumstances befall Darrow and the people that he loves, his eyes are opened to the truth, which is that humanity has been living above ground this whole time, and that they have been subjugated and kept below ground to fit into this caste system. So Darrow wants to infiltrate this caste system at its highest rung. So he is carved or given like various plastic surgeries and upgrades essentially to become one of the Golds, or a member of Gold Society. And this series is about him becoming a member of Gold Society and trying to bring forth equality for all. And again, this can be a very over-the-top series. This is kind of a melding of space opera and fantasy. I think it works very well to call it a science fantasy. And there are huge epic scale battles, but there are also really intimate moments. And again, you get that found family aspect where characters who you wouldn't have necessarily thought would come together start to form very real, very true friendships. And this causes some conflict in Darrow himself, because he has all of this rage and all of this hatred, but he also starts to get to know some of the Golds and come to really love and respect them. So phenomenal series. I really love it. Gurren Lagann is a phenomenal anime, and I think that they pair really well together. So if you have experienced one and not the other, then try giving it a shot. The third comparison that I want to make in this video is if you like the anime Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is also another very popular anime. It is fantastic. In my opinion, one of the best animes of all time. If you like that anime, then I think that you would probably like The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. I know that The Ember Blade has ended up in like a bunch of videos recently, so I apologize. I do have other books that I want to talk about, but this just fit so well. In Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, we follow two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, and they have been basically messing around with magics that they should not have been messing around with. Again, don't want to give away too many plot points, but essentially they have been utilizing alchemy in ways that it should not be used. So they are alchemists, and in doing or carrying out some of this magic, they have actually lost pieces of themselves. So our main character has lost, I believe it's an arm and a leg, and his little brother has lost his entire body, and his spirit or his soul is residing in the body of a giant robot, essentially. So you follow them on their quest to try to regain these parts of themselves, and also there's a lot of kind of political maneuvering and intrigue that's going along below the surface. This anime it's got fantastic writing. It is a bit of emotional whiplash because you do get those really silly, funny, over-the-top humorous moments that happen a lot in anime. And they're almost back to back with these really deep, dark, emotional moments. I felt like a yo-yo when I was watching this. So I'd be laughing 1 second and then I would literally be crying, like tears streaming down my face a couple minutes later within the same episode sometimes. But it's a completed anime. I believe it's like 60-ish episodes. There's not a lot of filler. It is fantastic. The characters are so good. You will love so many of the characters in this anime. And I think that it pairs really well thematically and tonally with The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. So in The Ember Blade, we have two best friends who are living in a country that has been occupied by an outside force, and they're from very different rungs of the societal ladder. So we have our main character, Aaron, who is kind of high society, but still of the occupied race. And then we have his best friend, Cade, who is lower, in those lower echelons, and they spend a lot of time together, but through unfortunate circumstances, they end up in a prison work camp. And from there, their relationship begins to change, and they are offered the opportunity to go on a quest to try to get back at the Crodans who have occupied their country of Ossia. And reasons that I think that this anime and this show pair well together is the central relationship in both. So in Full Metal Alchemist, we have two brothers who are working together, and you have that kind of sibling push and pull. You see that they love each other, but you also reach points in the anime where they become very frustrated, very upset, very hurt by each other. They have different ideas of what they should do or what they should believe in. And the same thing happens in the Ember Blade with the characters of Eren and Cade. They have always been best friends, and Cade has kind of always gone along with everything that Eren has done or Eren has said or suggested. And as their life circumstances begin to change, their relationship also begins to change. So we see how friendships can transform. This has that kind of coming of age element, adjusting to how those relationships change in your life. And again, this book has one character in particular who is really funny, so you get those lighthearted and humorous moments which show up during these really tense or dramatic scenes. Both the anime and the book here also have some elements of horror. There's kind of an eldritch element in the Ember Blade. You get these kind of Lovecraftian creatures that rise up, and that you have that kind of horror fantasy element. And there are some kind of horrific elements in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as well. The villains of the story are modeled after the 7 deadly sins, and they can be a little bit creepy. And there is one arc kind of early in the show that I found very disturbing. I don't know if everybody finds it as disturbing as I do, but sometimes my sister will still send me little like screenshots of one of the episodes, and it makes me so upset. So there are some mild horror elements in both of them, but super enjoyable. I think that they blend really well together and complement each other very well. For the fourth suggestion, we have, this is probably my favorite anime. I don't know, it's so hard to pick a favorite, but one of my favorite anime of all time, and that is Cowboy Bebop, which is a much older anime. I think it's from the late 90s probably, but Cowboy Bebop, I think, pairs very well with a series that I have just begun rereading, and that is the Dresden Files. So if you love Cowboy Bebop, then maybe you should give the Dresden Files a chance. If you've read the Dresden Files, which a lot of people have, then maybe go back and watch this older anime and give it a chance. But Cowboy Bebop is an anime that follows our main character of Spike, who is a bounty hunter, and this is a space opera anime. It's very short, very concise, but we follow Spike as he, with his crew, flies across the universe in search of people who have a bounty out on them. And there is kind of an underlying plot with a main antagonist, but it is that kind of episodic anime where you have a different villain of the day. And it all blends together, or all kind of converges on this underlying plot. The soundtrack of Cowboy Bebop is phenomenal. It's just such a good anime. I love the characters. I really like short anime. For one, that's one of the things that I look for. But I think it's very tight. There's not a lot of filler, and I think that it is absolutely fantastic. And the Dresden Files gives me that same kind of vibe. Not only because I think Spike and Harry Dresden have some things in common, they both have that kind of somewhat irritating chivalry. They are both kind of tall, lanky people who think probably that they're a lot cooler than they actually are. But you can't help but love them. You know, so many people love Harry Dresden. I really love Spike. I assume that he is a popular anime character with other people who have also watched it. But they give off the same kind of vibe. The Dresden Files, which follows Harry Dresden, who is a wizard PI who works in Chicago and solves various crimes. I think it mirrors Cowboy Bebop quite well. It's also an episodic story, so you have a different baddie of the day. So each book you take on a different villain, you're solving a different central mystery. But at least at the point that I have gotten to, which is only book 4, I'm starting to see that those underpinnings of an overall kind of undercurrent and underlying plot that I am assuming we are moving toward. But it really gives me those Cowboy Bebop kind of vibes, and I think that I am really going to enjoy Dresden. I did not like the first book. When I read it like 10, 15 years ago, I stopped and just didn't continue. But luckily through BookTube, I've heard a lot of people say that they love it as it goes on. And it does give me those same, like I said, those same kind of vibes. So I'm really looking forward to reading more of it. If you haven't watched Cowboy Bebop, go watch it. It is amazing. But the fifth and final suggestion that I'm making is actually not for an anime, it's for an animated movie. Again, immensely popular. I tried to stick with popular ones so that it would be things that I think most people have probably seen or at least heard of. But if you enjoy the animated film Howl's Moving Castle, which is a film by Miyazaki, then I think you would like The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And I don't remember, I think the author's name is Kelly Barnhill, but I'll pop it up just in case I'm not correct on that. But if you haven't seen Howl's Moving Castle, it is a whimsical, beautiful fantasy fairy tale that has been adapted into this animated film. And it is so lovely. There is a lot of depth to the story. So it is about a young woman named Sophie. It's been a long time since I watched the movie or read the show, but I found out as I was setting up for this that my husband hasn't seen Howl's Moving Castle, which totally blew my mind. So I will be rewatching it soon with him so that I can make him watch it. He is by far the bigger anime fan of the two of us, but he has not seen this movie, so we will do that. But I think her name is Sophie, and she has a spell cast upon her by a witch to turn her into an old lady, and she wants to help solve that problem, so she seeks out the wizard Howl, who lives in his moving castle. And again, there is that found family element. When Sophie finds Howl, he has a variety of friends who live around him. And it's about their relationship, about Sophie discovering who she is and coming into herself. It's a very beautiful movie. It's animated beautifully. The story is lovely. The book itself is written by Diana Wynne Jones, who has an excellent imagination and a wonderful sense of humor. So if you haven't read the book, Howl's Moving Castle, I would highly recommend that as well. But just to compare it to something different, I think that the Girl Who Drank the Moon, which is a middle grade novel, would make a beautiful, beautiful animated film. I think that it has that same whimsical fairy tale feel. It's about a village that's in the middle of a forest, and this village is it's filled with this kind of oppressive atmosphere of doom and gloom. And there is a council of elders in this village, and they have told the people that every year a baby needs to be selected and left in the woods as an offering, as a sacrifice to the evil witch who lives in there. And the witch will carry them away, and that will keep their village safe. Unbeknownst to the town people, there is in fact a witch who lives in the woods, but she is not taking these babies and eating them. She is taking them and not knowing why they're being abandoned in the woods and delivering them to loving families who live outside the woods, kind of in towns on the outskirts. And one night she picks up a baby, and instead of feeding the baby Starlight, which is how she usually feeds these babies to keep them happy, she feeds this baby Moonlight, and this gives the baby magical powers. And so she has to keep this baby on as her ward, and kind of treats her as a granddaughter. And it's about their relationship, and then also how the loss of this baby and the loss of these children in general have impacted the people in this town. So it's kind of a dual narrative where you follow the character of the witch, you follow the young girl, and then you follow some of the people who live in this town. The book itself made me cry. It is a beautiful story about the power of adoption, about found family, about finding love where you can, making a family for yourself, about bravery and courage and fear. Fear is a big element of this story, how fear can poison us, how it can force us to make decisions that we don't want to make. And it is, like I said, a beautiful story that I think would make a wonderful animated adaptation. If you haven't read the book, even if you don't like middle grade, I feel like this is one of those timeless middle grade stories that anybody can enjoy. It would be the best palate cleanser. It is a short, standalone fantasy novel. And if you like that whimsical fairy tale feel, I cannot recommend it highly enough. The cover is beautiful. Everything about this book is beautiful. It made me cry at the end. I will definitely reread it. I loved it so, so much. But that is the end. I just wanted to do a short video like this because I don't know how many people who watch the channel also enjoy anime, and I don't want to kind of keep you here for too long. But if you have seen any of these shows and you love them or don't like them, then please let me know. If you think they pair well with these books, if you have other suggestions, then please let me know that as well. But thank you for watching, and I will see you with another video soon. Bye.